I'm going to make lobster Cantonese, actually lobster shrimp Cantonese. And if you've had this in a Chinese restaurant, it is a tasty dish, but I say it's done the wrong way. And why? I'm going to make this as quick as possible, the steps. In any cooking, if you're making a chicken dish, do you use fish stock? There's your answer right there. You look at all the recipes of lobster Cantonese, and you don't see anything about fish or seafood stock, okay? So this recipe is a combination of French and Chinese. And what you're going to wind up with is a very tasty dish. And first thing we're going to do, we're going to use a whole lobster and not lobster tails, and this dish is made to eat easy. There aren't going to be bones, shell that you have to pick up and pull the meat out of. This is all shellless, skinless, or however you want to call it. The first thing we're going to do is this is the pot that's going to kind of steam boil the lobster. And the first thing we're going to do, like in all cooking, if you're making the bones for a dish, you put some mirepoix in there. So the mirepoix is in there, and this will simmer the mirepoix for about 10 minutes to pull the flavor out. Diced up nice and small, easier to get the flavor out of the mirepoix. And then we'll continue. Like I said, you use the bones for the dish that the animal comes from. What is that? That's the shells from the shrimps. You gonna throw those out? I don't think so. They go in there also. Oh, you might say, where are the herbs? You're making mirepoix. Well, you know what? It's Chinese cooking. They don't use those herbs. Thank you. It's important to set up the shrimps correctly. Okay. Just take the knife and cut deep. Why are you cutting deep? What'll happen is this will open up and be round and look so nice, just as it does when you eat it at the Chinese restaurant. And then you wash them out to get all of that out of there. And the lobster is going to be a female. Why is it a female lobster? Because the eggs are in there. Now you Google that and you'll learn something about why it's tastier. Now there's just about the rest of the ingredients except for the salt and pepper. Cornstarch, like the most important item in cooking with Chinese food. You never use flour because you see that the sauces are always clear, and that's from cornstarch, not cloudy like from flour. Going to use peanut oil to saute the pork with the ginger and the garlic, and then a little sesame oil at the end for flavor, and scallions at the very end. So really, what is the sauce? The sauce is really egg drop soup, because that's what it is. We're going to scramble the egg a little bit. You drizzle it in. The cornstarch thicken the stock that we're going to have from the lobster. And there you have the sauce, all done. Just, you have to be careful on a few things. So let me get moving on this. The mirepoix has been cooking long enough. Now the lobster's going in there. And if you think that I'm going to take off the rubber bands at this point, you're wrong. Just get the lobster in there, cover it up. It's on high. We don't want to cook it 100%. Why? Because we're going to cook it for 7 minutes. We're going to it's easier to pull the meat out of the shell when it's partially cooked than it is if it's raw. Certainly. And we don't want to cook it all the way because we still have to cook it just a drop more later. So you don't even have to look at this, just leave it 7 minutes and then we'll begin the rest. I changed my mind on 7 minutes just by looking at it. We make it 5 minutes. I'll take this out, leave it there. And now what I want from the stock is 1 quart. So you look at it, doesn't look, let's put it this way. For what's in there, if you look at it, that's probably a little bit more than 1 quart. So without the lid on it, because now we're done with the lobster, let that reduce into 1 quart. And if it reduces less than 1 quart, it doesn't matter, you just add a little bit more water. But if it's too much, then you have to reduce it, because 1 quart of liquid stock should be enough. And then we just swing right over here to the my little wok that I've been using for over 20 years. I don't have the ring that goes around it, but this works very well, and it takes the abuse I've given it. So what are we going to put in there? We're going to saute the pork. Put just a drop of peanut oil, because the pork has quite a bit of fat, right? So there's the pork. And then with the pork, bring out the flavor of the ginger and the garlic. That won't take long. So do this, break it up, and when all the meat that looks red right now is brown, you're done. We're not going to drain that. The stock is going to go into there, thicken it up with the cornstarch, and then get ready to cook the lobster and the shrimps. As in all cooking, you don't want to forget, this is a little sea salt mixed with pepper, a good sea salt. So you notice the color, it's not pure white. That means it went through less of a processing. So this is better for you. Just put a little salt and pepper. Everything has to be seasoned, because then when you mix things together, it should taste good. So we're almost ready there. Meanwhile, I'm going to take this lobster, I straighten out its tail. Does that matter? Not sure. Put it in the refrigerator. I'm not going to wait an hour before I break this thing open. So now I'm going to strain. I already took out of here most of the vegetables to make it easy to strain. And let's not make a mess. And like I said, going less than 1 quart, which I'm going to be very close. Let's see how close I got. Now, that's perfect, because now all I have to do is just add a little more. I have to taste this. You smell lobster in there. You don't even have to taste it. Anyway, we fill this up to here. Then we will continue with making the sauce. Get this going. And the hardest part, of course, is going to be cleaning the lobster. I'm starting off with 2 tablespoons of the cornstarch mixed with 2 tablespoons of water, and we'll see how that thickens it up. Because we're going to season and cornstarch the shrimps and the lobster later. I'm going to add the egg to that too. And at this point also I'm going to add either a tablespoon of soy sauce or a tablespoon of what I like to use is this liquid aminos. It's made from soy. Okay. Okay, we're going to go 1 more tablespoon. It's almost there. Now that it's thick enough, I'll add the slightly beaten egg, as you can see, to make it look like egg drop soup. Normally, if I was making a large amount, I would drizzle this through a china cap. And what I'm not going to use, what they use, is a little yellow color, because I don't like using anything that I really don't know what's in there. The yellow could be made of plastic. That's good enough. Just let's take a look at that. Looking more like lobster Cantonese now? Yes, it does. And the thickness is just right. And I'm cooking up a pot of sticky rice to go with this, with my meal. So now we'll set this aside. I'm going to put this in another pot. I'm going to use this wok to wok the shrimp and the lobster, which I have to take out now and break it apart. Okay, let's see what that 5 minutes cooking did to that lobster. Oh, that's good. If you notice, it's far from being fully cooked. And we'll just take a scissor and get that delicious tail meat out of there. We don't want to waste any. There we go. That's beautiful. If you I was going to say, if you feel how soft that is, well, you can't. But it's still a little undercooked, which is perfect. Now we go about see, that's a female. Notice what's in there? I think I'm going to eat that, but not just the way it is. If I put it into the sauce, it might change the color drastically. So I'm not going to do that, but what I will do is boil up the head and what you see in there, and then examine it and see if I'm going to use it. Now I need my lobster thingamajig to crack the claw, and you don't want to waste time looking at that. So after cutting through the claw here, then this should come out. Now it should come out. So that's a good amount of meat right there. So I'm going to cut this up, cut the tail meat up, dust it in cornstarch, saute it, and pour the sauce over it. I won't know if I'm going to use all of this stock that's in there until I'm completely finished boiling it up for about a half hour, and then reducing it and tasting it and see the color. If it's going to help the dish, it's going to be used. So if you ever heard of the dish called lobster American, whole lobsters are used in making the sauce. And then it's put into this machine with a screen and pressed. So everything that's in here is pressed through to make the sauce. And the reason why I'm also using shrimps on this, when you eat the lobster Cantonese in a Chinese restaurant, oh, it looks like so much on the plate because it's all in the shell, whatever. But when you take it out of the shell and you look at it, that's all there is. And for someone who likes lobster, that's enough for one person. So that's why I added the shrimps to the dish. So now it's just a waiting game for me. Let's see if I'm right in doing this. Just by looking at it, I'm going to say yes. And just by the aroma, you know what I could do with this? I can make lobster bisque out of what's in here. Absolutely. So that's a step you don't want to skip. We're going to boil this like another 20 minutes to a half hour. That's all I need. And then I'm going to reduce it. I already took the shells out that had no meat inside, like the part of the head, not the body, and the claws, because there was nothing in there. But it's nice and clear, and it's heavy flavor when that reduces, so we have to use it. Well, that's doing. We can get finished with the shrimp and the lobster. There's the shrimp and the lobster. A little salt. No, I know the lobster is from the ocean and has salt, but a little bit more. And just to show you, I've cut up the lobster in little bite-sized pieces. Okay. Now this, what you see here, that's enough for 2 people. Because when you start eating this, you don't want to share it with anybody. So this was not a cheap recipe, but then again, how often are you going to do it? The shrimp and the lobster alone was like $41. So put enough cornstarch. Don't be afraid of wasting it, because you have to coat everything. And then we're going to saute this in peanut oil. And put the sauce right over it. And by doing it like this, the sauce is going to cling better. Well, you could just saute it in a little oil, peanut oil, without this, but the sauce clings to the starch, and that's what you want. Okay. We could do this step now by just putting this skillet up. First we're going to add the shrimps. Why? Because the shrimps are still raw and the lobster really needs another half a minute to cook. So, a little peanut oil in there, put the shrimps. Watch how they curl up so nicely. Moderate flame. I got 8 shrimp, so let's make sure all 8 get in there. 2, 4, 6, 8. And the rest is lobster meat. And meanwhile, over here, that's going to take a long time to reduce. But you know what? It's worth it. There are some recipes that take somewhat of a... I've been working on this now for a couple of hours. Okay? And then when you sit down and eat, 20 minutes later, it's all gone. Until you turn around and do it again. Since the shrimps are raw, we're going to put them right in well, you can't see it, but I have the pot with the sauce ready right there next to it. So I changed our mind. We're going to go from here directly into the pot, where you have no idea the aroma that's coming off this stove right now. Between the shrimps cooking, the lobster stock boiling. Do you see how nice they curl up? Because you cut them down the middle and deep. Just another minute and we're going to go right into the sauce. And by the time the sauce, you come to a boil, it'll finish cooking the shrimps. Because there's one thing my wife and I really dislike is when you go out and eat and the shrimps are overcooked. And you go, wow, these are professional people. Why are the shrimps overcooked? Because they're afraid to serve them raw. So that's where years of experience comes in. And just a little over here, and we're going to take these out. I would just sit down and eat these shrimps just the way they are. Now we take them out and put them right into the sauce. And then we'll add the lobster. Now I'm going to heat this up later. I'm not finishing this up right now. Is that one piece or two pieces? Come on. Well, whatever that is, it's too much for my wife. I think that piece will be for me. Whatever. And a tablespoon of sherry I already put into the sauce. All this has to do is just cook the cornstarch a little and nothing else. So I'll be a nice guy and give her that piece. We'll put a bowl of sticky rice right in the middle of the plate. The scallions will go in at the very end. And this is done. So now we'll just look at the and we're going to boil down that stock. That's going to take some time. What I might do is help it along by putting it in here also. Now we'll be done in half the time. That's on a high flame. And let's look at the, just take a look at what the pot looks like and how much is in there. So the only other thing that's going to go in here is just a little more what I call some super stock, and it won't hurt this sauce at all because it's plenty thick. And in just about 3 hours, I'm going to bring this to a boil. The rice will be ready, and then we'll sit down and eat. So now just reduce this. I'm going to reduce it down to like a half a cup. So what I did now is just strain this into here. Until that comes down to a half a cup. Give a taste. That is lobster. Actually, it didn't take long once, because this is a wide pan. Reduces fast. I think that is the right amount. Let's see what we got here. It couldn't be more perfect. Like I said, a half a cup right into that. Now, all I'm going to do mix this up, taste it, looks great. That could be the best lobster Cantonese I've ever had. And why? Because it has a strong lobster flavor. So now what I can do is, I'm going to leave it in here, fill this up with water in about an hour, simmer it to keep this hot. It might finish cooking just the way it is. If not, the rice is ready in the back. When my wife comes home, I'll finish videoing the plate. We'll see how nice it looks. Not that this is part of the recipe, but when I was in the market buying a few things, I saw some nice looking beefsteak tomatoes, so I'm having a little salad along with my lobster shrimp Cantonese. So for an hour and a half, I've had this double boiled. Now if I'm guessing, it should have been enough to finish up the lobster and the shrimp. Just bring it to a quick boil, which should be fast. Look how it's boiling. You'd be surprised when you double boil something. That's extremely hot. It's just like cooking it. So we're going to just lower this, add a drop of the sesame oil, just a drop, like a half a teaspoon. We don't want to make this taste like sesame oil. And the scallions. And we're going to mix this up. The rice, the sticky rice. Presentation means a lot, so we'll take, if I had a large scoop, I would use the large scoop, but I don't. Now, in this household, we share equally, and when there are 8 shrimps, that means it has to be divided 4 and 4. This is the difficult part of serving food here. So what I'm going to do is, there's the plate. We're going to pick out the shrimps and place them, like if I could tell the difference between the shrimps and the lobster right now, because they're all the same color, but the shrimps have a little different shape. So that'll take care of the shrimps. And now we take some of this, the lobster, in the sauce, place it around without giving any more shrimps away. And we'll throw in another piece of lobster for my wife. And there you go. That's it. Real lobster shrimp Cantonese without any chicken stock like everybody else makes. I hope you enjoy it.